Campbell's Comments Equestrian, proudly brought to you by Barrostock. They signed on the other day, Elle.
Which is exciting, and I'm wearing the hat now.
Absolutely.
In my favourite colour, pink.
And you get to keep that one. Elle Moro, Hilltop Horsemanship. Last week, show was very, very well received. It was the first episode in, I suppose, basic horsemanship and horse handling and the likes. The feedback has been terrific, and that's one thing we want to encourage on the Campbell's Comments Equestrian page, plus your own pages. Feedback. We need feedback to be able to grow what we're going to do.
Definitely loving the comments, the shares, all that's really appreciated, and any questions and feedback, definitely touch base with either of us. We're more than happy to hear.
Absolutely. If you're watching this on Facebook, obviously hit like. If you don't like my page, go to Hilltop Horsemanship and hit like as well. Go to the Barrostock page, hit like if you like there as well. YouTube, please, on both pages, hit subscribe. We need more. The more people that subscribe, the better it is, the easier it is. We can put stuff up on websites. We can do a whole lot more stuff. So if you're watching it on YouTube, please hit subscribe and go from there. What are we expecting from today's lesson, Elle?
Quick review of what we did last week, leading into some ridden work, really focusing on the mounting and dismounting and one rein stop, which I think is probably where a lot of people's nerves really come into play.
Absolutely. All right, I'll hand over to you and we'll go from there.
So one of the main things I tell all my students and people that I work with is it's really important to check your groundwork before you even get on your horse. 5 minutes of groundwork before you get on gives you a real clear indicator of where your horse is at, whether they're listening to you, if they're unsettled. It also gives you a good opportunity to make sure your saddle's sitting fine, your girth is done up, and everyone's really happy and ready to go. So a good example of that is everything we learnt in the last part. We'll do a really quick review here with Wilbur and just tick those 3 things off our checklist before we make a start.
Can I interrupt one thing before you get too started? You said about him chewing last week and he was actually doing that while you were talking. He's like, I'm ready for this. I'm going to start showing the first sign that I'm happy and ready to go.
He did. He's seen the camera and I think he thinks this is his new job role. Much to his surprise, there's a little bit more, but he's doing really well actually. So we'll start with moving the hind or disengaging the hind. So again, just a really quick review over last week. What we're looking for is the horse's back legs. When we apply the pressure to the outside, that they step away from us, crossing over their legs. Again, Wilbur's at the stage now, we're coming into week 4, where we probably can look for 2 or 3 steps in a row now. So we shorten our contact up to the ear and we're going to step around and ask for that hind movement. So we get 1, 2, 3, good man. And we just give him a pat and let him process. Again, both sides, it's really important to do both sides. Make sure he's listening from every direction. Good boy. And I remember last time I said that, good boy, that every horse has a stiff side. Wilbur still has a stiff side. You can see one side is more willing to move away from that pressure, a little bit more responsive. But by doing that, we can now tick off that he's happy to move his hind. He is listening to me. His adrenaline's low. Those movements haven't agitated him, upset him. He's really relaxed. Like his head carriage there, he's not stirred up at all by that. Not at all. He probably has had enough already, but no, he's not at all. Adrenaline on a horse, the easiest way to tell whether your horse has got high adrenaline is where their head is sitting. Fight or flight animal, when they run away from something, whether it's fear or they're scared, head comes up into the air. So he's giving us a really obvious statement here that he's pretty relaxed with what we're doing. So that's disengaging the hind. Again, if any of these steps your horse wasn't listening or giving you the right answer, you would stay doing that task until they did. You want to just finish on a good note. He did those pretty well. I'm quite happy with them, so we'll move on to the next task. The next one was the shoulder across. Again, keeping it simple. We're just looking for him to shift his shoulder away from the pressure when I apply it. Anticipating a little bit. Don't stress when they anticipate, it's just a wrong answer. So I just correct him, give him a pat, give him time to reset. He's just getting a little bit ahead of himself and going, I know what she wants. He actually doesn't know what I want. So I don't discipline them for that. It's not a bad behavior. It's him over trying to a degree. So just let him stand and let him process and set yourself up so he can clearly listen to the directives.
Just while you're on that, before you do get started, Elle, Because you're here talking to me and the camera and trying to do a show, would you normally give him this much time when you did the back end just there before you stopped and readjust the camera? Is that the sort of thing you would do normally? Would you stop and give him a bit more time and then start him again?
Definitely. I am a big believer in giving them what I call a reset. So reset can be this: standing, taking all the pressure away from him where he can be given the opportunity to process. Another good way to give him a reset is to take him for a quick walk. 10-15 strides. It's just breaking up each task individually so that he can process them as separate tasks. If you flow them all too quickly and don't give them time to process, there's two things that can go wrong there. One is he doesn't understand that every movement has a different cue, because to him it's one whole movement. And the other one is there's no release. So he doesn't actually know that he's done the right step first. So it's really important to go, do this, he does it, leave him alone. So yeah, most definitely give him plenty of breaks, whether you're talking to a camera or talking to your horse.
Very good.
So shoulder across. Remember, as he moves his shoulder, I have to keep going with the horse. I can't plant my feet and ask him to keep moving away and then he hit the contact of the lead. So again, just out a little bit, looking at the shoulder. Beautiful, good boy. And again, he's anticipating what I want, so I just correct him and say wrong answer. So a little bit of an insight there, which we're not actually going to cover in this series, but is something that I do cover in my lessons and clinics, and that is the lunge. And you can see Wilbur there moved his shoulder across and then was wanting to travel forward on the lunge. That's because I begin all my lunges with shoulder across. So he's anticipating what I've taught him, that when we move our shoulder across, it actually is okay to travel forward in some circumstances. So in that situation, definitely I just correct him, because he's actually doing something I've taught him. Move your shoulder, then travel forward. And again, we want to check both sides. He just went to move forward there a little bit, so I just correct him. Good boy.
And you don't look for the legs to cross over when you're moving them, the front legs cross over like
yes,
the back?
Yes, definitely. Yep. So in that, we'll do that again. What happened there was good boy Wilbur, he crossed his legs, but the first two strides he went behind or just together, which is a try. If he was week 1, I would reward that and make a fuss of him, but he's week 4, so my expectation is that he gives me 100% the right answer. So that's why I kept the pressure going until I did get that crossover. So I'll try to stay out of his way so you can see it a little bit. So you can see wrong, wrong, right.
Yep.
Good boy, Wilbur. Good example.
Hopefully that got caught on the camera. As I said, it's a little bit tricky when you're working with an animal and not sure exactly which way they're going to go. So you've got to be careful.
Yep.
But you could clearly see that last time you said 2 wrongs and then the right
and the right answer. Yep. And you can see that when he was giving me the wrong answer, I didn't change how I was asking. I stayed calm. And then when he gave me the right answer, I took everything away. So then he realizes that that is how I get the release. So he's done really well. I've been able to control his hind. I've been able to shift his shoulder. He's pretty relaxed. Doesn't seem that he's irritated by the saddle or the gear. So the last one, and this is the most important one, and we're actually going to do it with the halter, and then when I get ready to ride, we're going to do it again once we put the bridle and bit on. It's the flexion. So it's the following the nose. This will cover a lot today. This is your 1 rein stop, your handbrake, your emergency stop. And as I've said before, it's really important that you train this on the ground and under saddle when everything's going smoothly. It's no use relying on this button or this tool if you haven't actually practiced it. So again, standing behind the girth. When you've got your saddle on, it makes it 10 times more clearer to really understand where you're actually standing with your horse. So we're standing behind the girth, and we're going to come out wide and ask Wilbur to follow the feel. Remember, as he gives his nose, we're going to come back up, and we're trying to get as close as we can to where we would be if we were riding him. So this will actually transition nicely to when we get under saddle. You can see how what we've done on the ground starts to really translate up to when the horse is in the saddle.
And always hold the rope up there, keep the rope up there.
put it up there. I find some people that aren't used to using long ropes, when they're flexing, there's ropes everywhere, so I just put it over his neck, it's out of the way. So again, we're going to ask him to come out and then up, and I'm going to be really clear that I hold this flexion for as long as I like. Good boy. And he can have a little pat because he did that pretty well. Good boy. Both sides.
We'll just come around this way and we'll probably just get a bit more of a side-on angle for that one, just so that people can see what you are actually doing with him right around here, Elle.
Yep. So standing, I'll just repeat myself, standing behind the girth, I'm going to come out and ask Wilbur to follow his nose, and we're going to try to get as close as to where my hands would be when I end up riding him. So we're coming out, we're saying follow the feel, Wilbur, and then up. You can see it's interesting actually with Wilbur that when we ask for him to do his movements of his hind, this is his stiff side, but when we ask him to do follow his nose exercise, this is where he's much more softer. So it's quite interesting how different parts of his body obviously have been used differently, and he's obviously a lot more flexible and soft up here than he is down here on this side.
Could that be a standardbred thing, pushing a cart along a lot, or?
I actually don't find, not that way, back up to resetting because I didn't actually ask for that. I don't find that it's a common thing where standardbreds have a particular side, which is quite interesting considering, you know, some states race certain ways versus others, and I probably put that down to trainers have a lot of different approaches. Some trainers probably go one way more than the other, and I think our training techniques and approaches as an industry are changing rapidly, which is exciting from the retraining point of view, but I wouldn't say that it's something that I could say most of them have this side versus that side.
Very good.
So I'll just nick over, get sorted, and then we'll come back for ridden. So I've just quickly put a helmet on, very pro helmet here at Hilltop Horsemanship, and put his bridle on. Quickly before we go to the flexion with the bit on, I just want to highlight, and I don't know whether you can see it, I've got a tiny little strap here underneath the bit, and I actually get a lot of comments off people what that's for. Sometimes I have a little chain under there or a bit of leather. Sometimes I even have a little cat collar because I like to be savvy with my money. That is purely for green horses and sometimes riders that maybe don't have their cues or handling of their reins and contact 100% sorted out yet. It just stops the bit from pulling through the horse's mouth so aggressively. It just makes the bit sit a lot more tidier in his mouth, and therefore making the feel and contact that we use under saddle just a lot more consistent for him. So for the sake of a bit of hay twine or something, I highly recommend for everybody to use that on any green horse, or especially a rider that's just starting to learn their feel. Effectively,
you just said then to a cat collar or a chain, they're not cruel, they're not anything like that. They're just there to help you, and once you let it go, then they just sit there loose like that.
Exactly.
One there.
So pretty much for the whole time that I work, Wilbur, this will serve no purpose. It would only be in the instance, and we might see it when we do some flexion under saddle, where maybe he's a little bit resistive to the feel or unsure, or if you were using your one rein stop in an actual real life situation, maybe a truck's gone flying past that your horse isn't comfortable, that you would really see that come into play. So instead of the horse becoming anxious and opening their mouth maybe, and the bit pulling through, it means the bit stays where it should in the horse's mouth. So not at all causing him any discomfort. If anything, it's just making that bit even more comfortable because it stays pretty consistent where it sits.
A little bit of a placebo too, that some people know it's there, so then they're a lot more comfortable.
Definitely. The alternative too is sometimes I ride them in a Tom Thumb bit, which has the pieces either side, which just help him as well turn. They normally come out of that when I'm educating them at about week 2, so that's why he's not in one. So what we're going to do is our flexion on the ground with the bit in his mouth before we get on. It stays exactly the same as what we did when we had the halter on. I put the reins over his neck as if I was going to ride. Outside rein, we don't need to worry about it. It can just sit there pleasantly. Everything stays the same. I stand behind the girth and I ask Wilbur to follow his nose. So it's exactly the same cue, but now we're asking him to follow the feel of having the bit in his mouth. giving the outside rein. We don't need that. And I'll explain a little bit more when I'm on him about how important it is to give that outside rein. And again, out wide and up we go. And we're holding that for as long as we like. Good fella.
And he's not in any discomfort in there.
He's quite happy to sit in the flexion because he knows that if he stays there, he gets a really nice release.
The one thing we've got to say here too, this is re-educating a horse. This is not breaking in a horse. If some people are watching this and saying, oh, you got to do more than that when you break one in, yeah, you do. Yep. This is a horse that's raced.
Yes.
He knows what the left and right means. It's just so you've got that security blanket back.
Definitely.
And know where it is.
Yeah, and these are really skills for the horse and rider to have so they can be confident together. Definitely things we need to tick off the list as we re-educate them or start them under saddle, but most importantly I feel that every riding combination should have these really basic skills so that they're confident in situations. So this is something that I do with a horse that's only been under saddle for 4 weeks before I get on. But if I was riding someone's horse that they've been riding for 10 years, I would still check that it has its flexion before I get on it.
Yeah, and it's just for horse and rider, and it doesn't hurt.
Exactly.
It doesn't take any time, does it?
No, and I've obviously spoken through there, so it's taken a little bit more time than if I was just to come in the round yard, but realistically I could have ticked all that off my list with Wilbur in less than 5 minutes, and now I get on him knowing that his hind's relaxed.
And we've got that, and that actually was pretty cool because that wasn't staged in any way. Just so people are aware, I'll actually go over and we just had the saddle pad
blow off in the wind.
Just a little gust of wind and it blew off, and that's the whole purpose of that rein, because he actually went around you, didn't go one bit near jumping over the top of you.
And that is, well done Wilbur, that is a good example how I've always instilled in him that he has to shift his weight and body parts away from me. So exactly, he got a fright from a saddlecloth that's blown off the outside of the round yard, and straight away he moved away from me. Not once did I feel like he was coming on top of me, and more importantly, he moved some strides but then stopped and looked at me as if to say, what do you want me to do now? So that's probably a good example of everything we've just done on the ground. Just
so you're aware too though, Elle, when you were saying about time and we got rudely interrupted by a gust of wind, you were actually less than 4 minutes anyway. So the fact that people say, oh, they're time poor or they don't have enough time to physically be able to do something, it took 4 minutes from the time we started recording and he had his bridle on to reassure him, and you're talking to me. So you could nearly halve that time. It's only about 2 minutes, and then you know you've got everything going for you.
Yeah, very quick process as long as they're doing it everything right. You know, and if I hit something, say he wasn't flexing, I would stay on that flexion until we got it 100% right. Also, I do like to highlight to people too that if I was to come in here with the ambition that today I'm going to ride Wilbur, but for some reason he was really agitated, whether something external was going on, maybe he's come in off some green grass for a weekend, I wish we had that blessing here but we don't, and he's a little bit full of himself, if I got nice relaxed groundwork with a saddle on, I wouldn't necessarily ride him. I think it's really important for his confidence but also the rider and handler's confidence is to quit while it's going good. And if that means that you don't ride for that session, don't be harsh on yourself, don't be critical and say I should ride every day. What you should do every day or as often as possible is do something positive with your horse, and if that's groundwork, well done. If that's simply catching a horse and changing their rug, well done. It's got to be safe and positive every time you go out there as much as possible. They're horses, things go wrong, saddlecloths blow off fences. But don't be hard on yourself if you go out and your horse is upset and you finish by doing one good flexion and you don't want to get on, maybe you're nervous or they're still a little bit, finish on that note. That's perfectly fine.
Absolutely. Campbell's comments equestrian is actually going to do some things with some nutritionists, Rebecca Ham and Andrew Soper as well from Barrostock and Kentucky Equine each, about green grass.
Perfect.
And the effects that it does have as well. So stay tuned to this channel for a lot more stuff that's coming up in the very near future. We're going to be doing some stuff on that, and that's the whole idea of this page, is to highlight different methods, different ways of getting around horses, but also, you know, right and wrong ways of feedings and nutrition and changing environment, and saddle pads blowing off the back of a round yard, which we're pretty happy about. So yeah.
So now we're going to focus in this little ridden session, because you know we only have a small amount of time, and I think keeping it simple is really also not flooding everybody with 60 things that we could do under saddle to build confidence for the rider. I want to address two main issues or concerns that I feel people express when I say to them, you've lost confidence or you seem a little bit nervous. Why or when does that happen? The two main things that I hear is when I'm getting on and off my horse, I become really nervous or unsure, or my confidence drops. And the other one is I'm always worried that I won't be able to get my horse to stop if things escalate. So let's work through mounting and dismounting. He has had 3 days off, not that you could tell. So before I jump on and go through what we're going to do, I use a mounting block 90% of the time. I think it's more fair on his back. It's a little bit more fair on me, even though I'm not that old, but definitely I think it's more fair on the horse. But speaking from a confidence point of view, if it makes getting on and off easier for the rider and the horse, that's definitely something that's going to help you be more confident when you're getting on the horse. So go ahead, use mounting blocks, crates, logs, all those kind of things. Anything that sets you up for success and to get it right, go for it.
Before you do that, Elle, you move the mounting block to him?
Yep.
Is that what you would normally do?
So I do train, good boy Wilbur, I do train the park up, which a lot of people would have seen. I just haven't quite got to it with Wilbur yet. So that could be another. So with Wilbur, he doesn't understand park up yet. So I do take the mounting block to him.
And it's intentional, because you just got down because it didn't work. So it's intentional that you take it back to him.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm not going to chase him around there or anything like that. Because number one thing of getting on and off is that your horse stands still. So if you're up on the mounting block and your horse is jumping around on the spot, and he's going to do a wonderful example of this for us. I'm not going to stay up there and put one leg in the stirrup as he's walking off on me, because that's when things are going to go wrong. So I will do this repetitively until he happily stands up here with me.
Don't wait for me. You keep doing your thing too.
So number one thing when you get on your horse is when you put that foot in the stirrup, you've got to commit to getting on. So I always say to people, stand on the mounting block as long as it takes. If you need to stand up here for 10 minutes and breathe and talk and sing or do any of those things to relax, that's fine. But as soon as that foot goes in that stirrup, you need to commit to getting on your horse. Things generally go wrong when people are half on and then maybe go, I want to get off. So I always prepare my students in that to say, stand on that mounting block till you're relaxed. Get on and off that mounting block 30 times if that's what it takes. But as soon as you put that foot in the stirrup, you're committing to getting on. Inside rein, always shorter than the outside rein, because as you can see, I've got Wilbur's nose to the inside. So say I was half on and the saddle cloth fell off again and he got another fright, I can already know that where he's going to go. He's going to follow his nose and come to the inside. Two reasons that's good. One is I know where he's going to go, so he's not going to shoot forward and take off on me. And the other reason is if I was to slide off the saddle or fall to the inside, his hind end is going away from me. So I'm safe, and it's all about keeping yourself safe so you're confident. So I ask for a little bit of inside bend and I'm committing to getting on. And I hold that inside bend until I'm ready. So that might be that I wiggle around and make sure I'm comfortable, and then I release. Praise your horse and sit up here as long as you like. We don't want to get in the habit of jumping on and straight away trotting off onto a 20-meter circle, because the day you decide that I don't want to do that, your horse is going to be, but that's the routine. So that's getting on. We'll just quickly go over it. Stand on the mounting block or on the ground as long as you need to. Make sure that once you commit to putting that foot in the stirrup that you get on your horse. Hold the inside rein shorter than the outside rein, even on Old Faithful horse that you ride every day, because it's sometimes, as we've displayed today, it's not what the horse is or how he's presenting, but it's external things that can happen that can give them a fright. And then stand still as long as it takes. So we're going to skip a step now to dismounting while we're here. You can dismount onto a mounting block or onto the ground, wherever you feel comfortable. But the principle of getting off pretty much is exactly the same. Your horse stands. You don't attempt to get off. If he's unsure or not willing to relax, I would do circles or figure of eights and keep offering the halt till he's happy to stand relaxed. Inside rein again is short, because again, if I'm halfway off the horse and something happens, I know his hind is going away from me when I land on the ground, or he's going to do a circle around me. So I've got inside bend, I've got control of his nose. This one's debatable. I only take 1 foot out of the stirrup because I climb down off my horse as if it's a step. Some people like to have both feet out of the stirrup. I don't think there's a right or wrong. The right or wrong is once you take your feet out or take 1 foot out, once you commit to getting off, you need to get off, because that's when it goes wrong. So I'm happy, he's quite relaxed. I've got a little bit of inside bend. I've taken outside stirrup out and I'm up and I'm off. And you can see that even then, if he got a fright, I'm still holding on to my horse. I haven't thrown the rein at him and go, life's okay. So that's the pretty basics of getting on and off your horse safely. And going back to what we just spoke about too, about finishing on a positive, I've got a few students where getting on and off by themselves in a round yard at home on a windy day is a huge achievement. So to me, if that was a huge achievement for someone that's really nervous and lacking confidence, and they caught their horse, did their groundwork and got on and off and their horse remained calm, I would say to them, take your bridle off, take your saddle off, give yourself a pat on the back and call it a day. We don't have to walk, trot and canter to say that we've had a good session with our horse.
Don't go for glory.
Exactly. Yep. And so we're just going to get back on again. So inside rein, he's standing still. I've committed to getting on. I'm happy that he's standing still. I'm comfortable in my saddle. He can have a little bit of rein.
So Elle, just said when you got back on, you weren't on the top step. Does that not matter? Like, it's something I noticed, and you, so it obviously doesn't. I think it's one thing I've noticed. A lot of good horse people that I come across, they'll do something, and when you question them, they're like, oh, didn't I? Like, you don't realise, but it's not necessarily as important to be at the top.
No.
It's just as long as you're there.
Yeah, and as long as you're standing where you need to so you can get on nice and quickly. And when I say quickly, I don't mean rush. As I said, if you get on that mounting block and the heart's pumping and you're nervous, don't say, I've got to do this quickly. It's quickly once your foot's in the stirrup. It's so you don't hang around in that mediocre land where things can go wrong. If the top step's comfortable, go for it. If the bottom step's comfortable, go for it. If you're really agile and young and you get on off the ground, that's fine too. What's
your go-to song? You said sing a song. You got to have a go-to song.
I like to say Celine Dion, but Ben will laugh at me and say that I'm not a very good singer. So I'm just going to let Wilbur have a quick walk because he's done a lot of standing then and letting me talk to the camera. And this is just that reset button to say, you know, you did a good job. So I'm taking all the pressure off my horse. I'm just asking him to walk forward. I'm not asking for anything flash or hard work. I'm just letting him go that was pretty good. Life's pretty easy.
And more or less making the ride a bit of the fun, like you said about a reward, it's sort of making the ride that bit of fun.
Yep. So going for a nice little walk like that to Wilbur's pretty easy. He'd happily walk around his paddock to go get a drink or something to eat. There was no pressure to him there, so he was quite happy to do that. Versus if I was asking him to do figure of eights with inside bend and adding leg, his brain's really occupied in that kind of task. So that was his reset to say, good bloke, you did well there. So the next thing, well, the final thing really we're going to do under saddle today is flexion. So we did flexion on the ground with the halter last session, and then today is a little bit of a reviser as well. We then did flexion on the ground with the bit in the horse's mouth, and we could see how it transitioned exactly the same really, like where we were asking him to follow his nose was the same. So now we're going to do it while we're sitting on the horse. And again, this is leading up to our one rein stop. this is leading up to the fact that I can pull my horse's nose around and his legs will stop moving, and that puts me in a safe position to either get off or sort myself out. But most importantly, it will also encourage Wilbur to keep the adrenaline low. A horse can't flex with their head up here. He's naturally going to want to follow his nose and put his head down, and the adrenaline's going to drop. So when something's gone wrong and he's flexed, the rider's been able to calm down, sit up tall, stay safe, and you've been able to help your horse's adrenaline drop. So as far as where you're sitting, I keep it simple with my rider's position at the start. Heels down, imagine your kangaroo, tuck your tail, shoulders back. Don't overthink your position. Just keep it really simple.
Never heard the kangaroo thing before.
Never?
Never.
So I say you've got a calm tail and you're trying to tuck your tail underneath you.
Like it.
So again, I don't need my outside rein for this task. I can't hold my outside rein and expect him to follow his nose, because that's when he's going to be like, well, I can't do this. Pressure one side, pressure the other. Now, when I say throw your outside rein away, I don't mean literally throw it away. I just say give it plenty of slack. You'll probably be able to see that it's really not doing anything. I've completely given it away to him. And it's the same thing. I'm going to slightly lean down and take the feel out, and then as he follows his nose, I'm going to come back up, and again I'm trying to go where I was on the ground. So we're going to lean down a little bit. I've still got my heels down so that if something went wrong, I'm sitting up still. So we're going to lean down, he's anticipating, come out wide. As he gives me the feel, I pull it in. Good boy. And again, I hold this as long as I like. Good boy. And release. The release is the praise. Give him a pat, tell him he's a good boy.
He's doing a good job, because he wouldn't be normally having a dude walk behind him with a black thing.
No, not at all.
And be watching and saying what's going on.
He likes the camera. Now we're going to do his other side. So again, we give the outside rein, sit nice and straight. So heels down, tuck your tail, sit up tall. Don't overthink it, because at the moment, this is all about knowing in your head and being confident that your horse has a one rein stop. So we lean down, we come out wide, and then we end up. And you can see that we're almost ending exactly the same as where we were on the ground. Good boy. Now, he hasn't demonstrated it. I was kind of hoping he would. That sometimes when you ask your horse to follow their nose under saddle or ask for the flexion, they'll move their feet and swing around. In that instance, you just sit still and hold that flexion until his feet stop. And when the horse's feet stops, you give him back the rein. And that will teach him that the release comes from when I have your nose, but your feet are still. It's really important to focus on them standing still as well as give the nose. Otherwise, they learn that the release comes when they spin around. And that's not what we're asking for.
It's one of the things I notice, because I'm not a rider. I drive standardbred horses from time to time and pretty much talk a lot about them. How impressively relaxed he was standing there when you were bringing his nose around. Not even, I noticed it before, and people can go back and watch the video, just rewind it a little bit and just see where his stance was. The back legs are spread, that he hasn't really moved him from where he was, but he's just so relaxed in what you're doing.
Yep.
You can feel that through the saddle, how relaxed he is? Definitely. And as this progresses, and we won't get to it in the video, but a lot of people, as they progress through their lessons with me, they see how this all marries up to the flexion leads to circles to the inside following the nose, which leads to the horse relaxing along his back and low adrenaline. And it's keeping it really simple and keeping everything so that it just ticks along nicely to the next step. So when I progress from flexion to circles to the inside, it's quite similar for Wilbur, but it's quite similar for me. I'm not having to train something completely new. And so, to be brutally honest, you're not the person we're trying to train. You're trying to train someone that's down on confidence, lost their way around the horses, so to make it simple so that they can follow the same steps as a horse and they're all learning in one set.
Yep, and that's why I like to say keep it simple when we do our flexion. Heels down, tuck your tail, sit in your saddle, don't overstress. I know people are really critical of their riding position. I am too of mine. I look in photos and go, I cannot believe you're sitting like that.
Wait till you see these ones.
Keep it simple. Do I have my heels down? Am I sitting deep into my saddle? And then go, okay, my goal here is to ask for my horse to have flexion and for his feet to stay still. So I shorten, I come out wide as he starts to give. Oh, here we go, he's going to do it. This is good. So you can see how he went to move, but I just held the flexion. Now he's stopped and I'll release it.
Yep.
So I made sure my legs are off him, so I'm not asking for the go button, but I didn't increase the aid. I didn't stress or grab. Here we go again, good boy. I'm saying good boy because he's demonstrating. And then he flexed and I left him alone. So you can see how very similar to what we did on the ground with the shoulder across. He gave me the wrong answer. That's okay, that's part of the learning process. He gave me the wrong answer. I didn't stress. I kept everything really simple and the same, and I just asked, and as soon as he gave me the right answer, I released.
Yep.
So that's a really good example. I was hoping he would actually do that for everyone. Good boy.
Hence the reason he got told good boy.
Yeah.
He might make an actor yet.
So I'll just get him traveling at a really relaxed walk, and then I'm going to show you how you can practice going from a walk to a one rein stop, because as I've said the whole time is you need to practice this skill in a nice, controlled, comfortable, relaxed environment, so that when or if you need to use it down the track, you know that your horse understands it. So what we're going to do is, look on.
Not 100% sure you want me, Elle, but you'll work it out. I'll work it out.
If you stay there, I'm going to walk around and I'll try to do it sort of over here so everyone can see me approach to the activity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let my horse travel. So Wilbur's traveling quite relaxed forward. I don't ride initially, well, often with a lot of contact, as far as I just want my horse relaxed, so I give him the opportunity to go long and low. So next time I come around, I'm going to think to myself that Wilbur's got a fright because the goats across the road have come running to the fence line. I'm going to not worry about my outside rein, because I'm going to ask for a one rein stop to the inside. So as we walk up, I'm going to swoop down, ask him to follow his nose, put my heels down. Good boy. So you can see how I've used that skill to go from a forward motion to a stop. Obviously he was already relaxed coming into that, but you can see that where his head was, the adrenaline was low.
That's what I was going to say. Effectively, you're doing make-believe there. I mean, you're riding him at the speed of the pony trots at the Bendigo show. Yep. And a bit of but that's what you want. You want to be able to do it in make-believe, so that then when it becomes real, you can actually do it at the right time as well.
Definitely. Start slow. I do work my way up with some students that we practice this exercise at a trot, but that's after numerous lessons where the horse is balanced and the rider has a clear concept. It's no use doing this at a canter straight away, because you shouldn't try to do this at a canter, because your horse is going to come from underneath you. So Wilbur, as you said, was barely going anywhere, but that was good because it allowed me to do it in slow motion to show you, but it allowed me to get the aid exactly the same as every other opportunity we've done it. So you can see at every opportunity I've asked for that, I've slid my rein, I've come out first, and I've tried to end up pretty consistently in the same spot. So we'll just do that in the other direction. So something started to go wrong. I thought I need to stop Wilbur because he's a little bit agitated. I give my outside rein, I shorten my inside, I ask him to follow his nose, and I put my heels down.
The emphasis on heels down?
Heels down is so that you don't collapse into your horse as you try to shorten that rein. Because if your toes go naturally, I'm falling, and my legs go behind, which causes all sorts of issues. So I always just say, as you come into a one rein stop, just put your heels down. Generally the rest of your body will sort itself out. So I think that's a really basic but good demonstration of how flexion leads to one rein stop. And if you've got flexion, it can keep you safe in a lot of situations, such as mounting and dismounting, one rein stop when you're out riding, whether it's an arena or out on the trail or in any situation. And also it helps your horse to have low adrenaline. And obviously when their adrenaline's low and they're relaxed like Wilbur is today, as you said, you can see that he's quite soft along his back. He's actually really enjoyable to ride because he's not worried about everything. So I think as far as confidence building, that's a really good starting point for when you get to the ridden stage. I cannot say enough that you need to go at your own timeline. you might get to be able to ride your horse in 2 weeks because your confidence is going really good, and maybe the reason you lost your confidence is only a minor thing. But there's also people I instruct who have had really bad falls or injuries, and their confidence has really taken a hit, and it's okay to stay at the groundwork stage for 6 months. It's all about you being confident and safe and going at your own pace, and you'll find that if you go slow, you'll be doing stuff before you even know it.
Well done, Elle. I think that was terrific. Well done, Wilbur. I think he's a star. I'd say that's a bit of a wrap for today's episode. You've showed a couple of times on how to get on and get off. This is obviously episode 2. If you enjoy this though, and you think, oh, I could get more out of this, get in touch directly with Elle at Hilltop Horsemanship and come out for some lessons. Elle might be able to go to you for some lessons depending on where you are and the likes. I think one of the key factors about Campbell's Commons Equestrian and what you're trying to do, this is only a guide and an aid. It's not for everyone, but if you feel you might be able to get more out of it, please, type a message, make a phone call, do something to help you, because we want people in horses, and that's the whole idea of Campbell's Commons Equestrian.
Definitely feel free to get in touch. I have some upcoming clinics throughout December, and some days of educating and having students involved over the school holidays, so definitely jump on board.
We're going to be back for episode 3 in about a week's time. I think we're going to have a couple of students with us, and we're going to do it a little bit differently and go from there. So if you've got any questions that you want to ask before week 3 starts, it'll be aired on the following Friday. Make sure you can get your questions in on these Facebook pages, and we'll try and answer them. But as Elle said there, get in touch with her. She's got clinics coming up over the school holidays and Christmas. And school holidays means that mum's free. Doesn't have to be for the kids. Like, mum is free, so mum can come out and get her lessons instead of the children, and give herself a bit of time and get her confidence back up so she can go out and enjoy riding with the kids.
Definitely, definitely.
Elle Moro, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.